thank you to everyone for joining this session. I know that you had a couple of different choices, so I really appreciate you coming on board and listening to ourselves. This session, I wanted to be as interactive as possible. It's going to be a conversation between myself and MaryAnn, just talking about the challenges that has had within the school in terms of introducing a hybrid learning model back when COVID first hit. Talking a little bit about the partnership that we have with the school and how we've been supporting them with digital curriculum and training for their teachers, and just discussing, you know, some of the things that have worked really well, some of the challenges that they've had, and maybe what lies ahead in the future. Anybody who has any questions at any point, please just write them into the chat box. And I will raise them with MaryAnn as we're going through the conversation, or we do have time at the end for a questions and answer session. So if I don't raise it during the conversation, I can raise it at the end, and we'll take everyone off mute and just have an open form of conversation to talk about maybe some of your experiences and maybe get some feedback from MaryAnn on her experiences. At this outset, I'll just give a very quick introduction to Edmentum. So just give you a 5-minute overview of who we are, how we've been supporting schools, our relationship with schools, particularly in AISN, and then we'll go straight into the conversation between myself and MaryAnn. So thanks again for coming on board. I really appreciate it. And we will just get started. So to give you a bit of background about Edmentum, Edmentum is very much an international company. We're based out of the United States. We have a couple of offices in the US, we have an office in the UK, but we have a team of people like myself who spend their time working with and partnering with international schools all over the world. So we work with schools in, it's probably close to about 90 to 100 different countries at the moment. And we support them in a number of different ways. We support them with not only assessment, but digital curriculum. And one of the unique things about Edmentum is we bring those two elements together. So we bring together diagnostic assessment data and K through 12 digital curriculum. So we do that through our blended and virtual learning curriculum. So we have full digital curriculum K through 12, but we have full digital curriculum that is also supported with the teacher as well. So we work with schools who maybe just want access to individual courses, where their own teachers will teach that course. Or in some cases, we deal with schools who actually want to utilize our curriculum and they need a teacher behind that who's going to support it. So we're a fully accredited K-12 school, but we also provide a number of different tools to support students. And the idea is that we build everything that each individual school needs, from both an assessment perspective and also a digital curriculum perspective, with elements of tutoring on top of it, with personalized support in terms of professional development for teachers. So there's a whole range of different things that we offer. We do have instructional support. We also have different programs that focus on social and emotional learning. So for anyone who's interested in looking at some of the solutions that we have, hearing a little bit more about how we're partnering with schools, please either go to the showcase after this conversation, reach out to me directly, or you can go to our website. So that was just a quick overview of Edmentum. At this stage, I'd really like to welcome into the conversation MaryAnn from AISN. MaryAnn, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on board and work with me on this conversation to support some of the schools across AISN.
Thank you for inviting me. It has been a great opportunity to talk about the things that we're doing here and how they can possibly help some other schools.
No, that's great. I want to start the conversation, I suppose, by just giving people, I know we're among friends here, you know, a lot of people who are on the call maybe know you and know the school, but it'd be good for you to just give a quick background about AISN, where are you located, the type of students that you have, just a little bit of background of the school first, just introduce.
Sure. So we are in Nouakchott in Mauritania in West Africa. We sit, for those that don't know where Mauritania is, we're between Senegal and Morocco. The Sahara Desert meets the Atlantic Ocean is where we sit. We have a small school that sits on the grounds of the US Embassy. Pre-COVID, we were just about at 100 students, pre-K through 12th grade. We use an American curriculum, and the school was pretty traditional. We had textbooks that we, once a year we get our order in from the US. Our US order comes in our shipment. We have all of our textbooks, and it was a pretty traditional school. Did not have a whole lot of technology, although we were moving into that pre-COVID.
That's what I was going to say. So when COVID actually hit, so if we think back to, was it March, April? This feels like a long time ago. How did you cope for those first couple of months? Because it was almost like an overnight switch, wasn't it? Where schools were put in a position, right? Okay, school has to close either this week or it has to close in the next 2 days. What happened for you between then and the end of the academic year?
So by February, we were, like the rest of the world, seeing that schools and the world was starting to close down. And so at that point, we set up Google Classrooms. We made sure all of our students had email accounts. We prepared to move online, but we had no online curriculum whatsoever. And then the country shut down literally overnight. There was the first case in the country came in on a Friday night. We had our high school students out on an overnight. They were on a 3-day field trip. They came back on a Sunday. The government announced all schools across the country had to be closed immediately. And then out of the blue, 24 hours later, the government shut down all the airports. Flights leaving and coming in were all closed. And so in a very short period of time, we ended up online, and we were able to move on to online immediately because we knew it was coming. However, we, like most of the world, did not have a curriculum. So our teachers were spending their time coming up with assignments that they could post online. We were working through Zoom, and we got through it. And our teachers were champions, and I can't say enough about what they did. But what we found was that they were spending 80% of their time developing curriculum and only 20% of their time actually delivering curriculum. And we had to do it, but we knew it was not sustainable going forward.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of schools experienced at that stage. It was a case of just getting through to the end of the academic year as best as possible, and then thinking about, what is the next step going to be. For some schools, it was probably maybe everything is going to be okay when September comes around, because at that stage, I think people were still unsure if it was going to be a long-term impact. But then as the summer months kind of progressed, I think more and more schools across the world realized that it's not going to be returning, the way we would have hoped. There would have to be some sort of either full online, blended or hybrid learning model would need to be put in place. So at that stage, I think you had traveled back to the US, I do. And the next stage was thinking, okay, well, what do we do next as we go to the new academic year? So what was your mindset? You were starting to think about, what kind of digital curriculum we can put in place, because like you said, you didn't want to put that strain back on the teachers again for the new academic year, because they would probably have burnt out within the first month.
Yes, they were definitely burnt out, and we would have long weekends. We try to schedule in some Fridays off and call them, screen time breaks. Nobody was allowed on their computer for 3 days. But by late into April, I felt that it was clear that we would not be having a normal school year opening up in August. And we needed to be delivering different curriculum. We needed to deliver a quality education that was going to be able to be online, but at the same time, something we could move between online and in person. And so at that point, we started looking at some different companies, and it was actually through ASA that I met you, Derek, and heard of Edmentum, which I had never heard of before. And we started looking at this option back in April into May. So it was early on that we started working on this plan.
I'm not sure if you know this, but when we had that conversation back in April, May, the model that you implemented was not something that actually existed in Edmentum. It was, you know, and for people who don't know, we do support schools. Traditionally, we support with assessments and we support with K-12 digital curriculum, or for schools who are looking for curriculum with a teacher because we're an accredited school. And we partner with schools who want that. But one thing that we didn't offer up to that point was support for schools who need a digital curriculum, but also needed professional development for their teachers. So we had that conversation, and you were telling me all the different things that you would need in order for this to be successful going forward. And I was taking notes and going, okay, well, that sounds like something that we now have to put in place for all schools that come to us, because you know, I don't think it was an option for you to say, well, we're going to take your curriculum and your teachers, because what would happen to your teachers then? You know, there needs to be that continuity. You need to keep your teachers in a job as well. And more importantly, they've got great relationships within the school, with parents, with the students, and you can't lose that. And that would happen if our teachers just stepped in and took over.
Yes, and that was where the conversation started with AISN saying, what if we create a small school group and all the kids you know, we make this virtual school. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't, you know, my school, I would lose my whole school. What would my teachers do? The students would feel like they had their own classes. If we're able to move back in person, you know, that wasn't going to work. And so it was funny because I kept saying, these are the things I need. And Derek, you kept saying, oh, we could do that. We could do that. And I was thinking, I wonder if he's asking his boss this, or if he's just saying, oh, sure, oh, sure. And then going back and getting in trouble and having his boss going, what did you just agree to? But you were great with, yeah, I kept pushing and you kept saying we could figure this out. And so many of the other companies that I talked to, I mean, I understand everybody was in crisis at that time. But I think because we're ahead of the curve, in the sense it was kind of this April, May, as opposed to being July, August, that you were willing, Edmentum, you and Edmentum were willing to work with us and make adjustments, whereas the other companies were like, no, this is what we have, and we're happy to let you you know, we had to fit into their model, whereas you were willing to let us fit into, to change the model to work for us.
Yeah, that's what, it's one of the things that actually we were having conversations with Peter Bateman about at the time as well, because I think there's a lot of different companies out there who can support a very, you know, they can support with digital curriculum, or they can support with curriculum and teachers, but there wasn't really a model out there for schools like yourself who could take a digital curriculum on, but also give the support that the teachers will need to be able to implement that throughout an academic year. And so, you know, it was triggered in the back of our mind from those conversations with Peter, because Peter was thinking about the different needs of schools across AISA. And then we were thinking as well, if this is affecting the schools within AISA, it's going to be affecting schools all over the world. So we quickly started to scramble in the background, think about bringing our teachers in and talking about what this model would potentially look like. So you decided to move forward with us, which was great. And we're really grateful for the partnership that we have in place. But what did that mean for you then? So once you made the decision to go with us, what did you start to do then in terms of, you know, training for your teachers, thinking about what the implementation of a model like this would look like, maybe thinking about, you know, convincing the parents that this is actually a viable option for the school going forward?
So the teachers were understandably very nervous about it. As I said, we did not, up until a few months before the pandemic, we had very poor internet. I mean, we had just put in a high-speed fiber optic dedicated line. So for the first time, the school had high-speed internet. So we were not a super technology savvy school. And so our teachers were really nervous saying, you know, what are you doing to us? And how are we going to know how to do this? And it's not just the technology. We know nothing about the curriculum. What are we supposed to do on day one? And so something that Edmentum was able to do for us was to train our teachers. And that was a huge benefit to the program. And so starting in the middle of July, our teachers spent 3 weeks in class with, it was just our class and one other school, just our school and one other school in the program with these 2 awesome instructors that taught them everything. I mean, you know, starting on the basics of Zoom, you know, how to make backgrounds, how to do all sorts of things, breakout rooms, reactions, all sorts of things, to then going through the actual curriculum and how to use the curriculum, how to use the grading, how to use the testing, how to opt out of things, how to make adjustments to it. And the teacher's confidence really, really built over that time. And so by the time we were ready to open school, the teachers were feeling like they had this. They had had a lot of time to practice, to know what they were doing. We also, because we started early, we used the week before school opened for small group sessions. We had all of our parents come and all of our students had to come ahead of time and learn how to log in, to get set, so that on our very first opening day, we opened at 8 o'clock that morning with all of our students online, and we were ready to roll right out of the box.
Yeah, no, that's great, because I think that's the one thing that so many schools are nervous about, and teachers are nervous about as well, is, okay, you've now maybe brought on new curriculum, but how is this going to be utilized every day? How am I going to build this in? I've been using the same lesson plans that I'm really comfortable with over the last couple of years. Now you're bringing in a new curriculum. How do I embed what I already know in on top of this new platform? But how do I also, you know, I'm used to teaching in a traditional classroom format. How do I now adapt and change to teaching 100% online? So yeah, that was one of the things that we really wanted to work with partners like yourself on, is giving that additional support from our teachers' perspective, not just, you know, implementation and here's the technology, here's how to use it, let's check in with you in a couple of weeks. I think the really important layer of this is having mentor teachers actually working with your teachers throughout the academic year.
Definitely. They are the 2 teachers. We have an elementary school teacher and a secondary ed teacher that are the mentor teachers. And they are so responsive, and our staff write to them with, you know, all sorts of questions. It can be about technology, it can be about the curriculum, it can be, I'm in lesson 4.2 in this math book and it's not working right, and or how can I do this, or what's the best way to do that? And we instantly get responses back from those mentor teachers, with suggestions, with things to do, and that has been huge. I was laughing the other day. My husband is an elementary school teacher, and he copied me on some communication he had with his mentor teacher, and then he sent me this, you're my hero, this little thing. And I was like, oh, that is so nice. And then I said to him that night, so why was I your hero? And he's like, I wasn't sending that to you, I was sending it to Carrie, the mentor teacher. And the teachers have really, really appreciated what the mentor teachers have done for them.
Yeah, no, that's great there. And I know that they've really enjoyed the learning as well from your teachers as well, and getting feedback from them in terms of how it actually works from their perspective, because I think up to that point, a lot of those teachers that we use would be used to working maybe predominantly with students in schools within North America. Even though we have a lot of international partnerships, they wouldn't have worked with teachers in international schools. So this has been a real development curve for them as well, which has been fantastic.
I think that was one of the fun parts when we were all working together, that sometimes they would have activities, and I clearly remember this one activity where they were talking about, we're going to do I Spy. They're going to teach us on Zoom and how to be in Zoom and then go out to the internet and do all this. And they're going through this, and finally had to interrupt. And I said, my teachers have no idea what I Spy is. Like, and they're like, well, the game. And I'm like, I know the game, but they have no idea. And then we're trying to explain what seems like such a simple game, but contextually, it just made no sense to the foreign teachers. So there was all sorts of fun experiences and learning opportunities for both sides.
And as the school year has developed, then you started off the year being 100% online. You're not 100% online now, though, are you? Are you back in classrooms, or you're a mixture of both?
We are back in classrooms. So we made the decision back in June that we were going to spend our first 4 weeks online regardless. We wanted to have a start date to school. We wanted something that everybody knew, and it was set. And even if we could have came in person, we made the decision we wanted everybody to work through all the kinks and be online and know how to do it, so that we could move in and out at any time. So we spent 4 weeks online. And I would have to say, by the end of the 4 weeks, everybody really had it. We were, the first 2 weeks is a bit rocky, and then you're getting into it, and you're like, okay, everybody understands this now. We were then able to move online or in person. When we opened up campus, about 20% of our students remained online. So either they were out of the country or they were within the country, but their parents did not feel comfortable sending them to school. And so we were operating, and still do operate, with about 20% of our students that are online, while 80% are on campus. We were on campus, and then we were actually in the middle of, we are MSA accredited, the Middle States Association, and we were doing our 7-year accreditation. So the big accreditation visit we're doing virtually. It's a 3-day visit with 4 people coming in, and we completed the first day of it. It was a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Monday night we had our first case, positive case. It was with a teacher that was a specialist teacher that touched the whole school, and so we had to shut down. And we reached out to families at 9:30 that night, and at 8 o'clock the next morning, 100% of our students were online. It was seamless. And the MSA were kind of teasing us, saying that they thought we had staged this whole event just to try to show off at how well this worked. But we were able to just instantly go online. We were online for 8 school days. We came back in person. We were able to operate in person. And then this week we had numerous people that were out getting tested. So we took 2 days out of being online. We were online on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. Again, just seamless. We were online, we had people tested, we were able to determine school was safe, and so we were right back on campus on Thursday. So we've been able to just move right between the 2 platforms.
Yeah, I think that's one of the major challenges that schools have continued to face, is the unpredictability of how they're going to teach on a day-to-day basis. You could have great plans to say, okay, now we've moved back into a physical school, but then one case can appear, and within 24 hours, everyone's back online. So how do you keep that continuity running? And more importantly, how do you ensure that there isn't just a buildup of learning loss that is taking place all the time, that students are actually still progressing and getting access to the support that they need? So the fact that you've been able to do that has been great.
Yeah, and it's certainly challenging. We have students on Zoom. As I said, about 20% of our students are online. So we teach we're using cameras and live streaming for our students that are home. And that has been very successful for our middle high school. It is a little bit more of our challenge for the elementary school students.
Yeah.
Trying to, you know, for them, it's a long day to be on Zoom. But the parents really like it because it's an option, so that they can, if their children are homesick or if they're staying home while they're getting tested, they know that they can come online, they can join the class, they can be part of it. It was cute. We did a Halloween event, and so the kids were dressed up, and we had kids at home that were dressed up in their costumes and participating at home, and then we were walking them around on iPads so that they could be sort of in the Halloween parade in their costumes from home.
And I think, you know, you've highlighted one really important thing there. With any program like this, or, you know, when a school is starting to put together an outline of a digital curriculum or a virtual or hybrid model, having buy-in from, you know, parents is really, really important, because they need to trust that what you're doing is actually going to be effective and is going to support their child. And it can be particularly challenging for elementary students, you know, particularly, you know, a school like yourself that covers all grades. It's slightly different for elementary, isn't it? You know, you can't just expect a child to sit in front of a laptop or a tablet for 6 or 7 hours of the day. So there needs to be support. It's not just everything is relied on you and your teachers. The parents need to be there and bought into the platform and program, and supporting it along the way as well.
Definitely. And that's a challenge here, because in our country, it's a French-speaking country. And so we have a lot of parents that are non-English speakers. And so that is definitely a challenge. One of the things that we have done is that we started using our teaching assistants in a completely different way than they have been used for the 40 years that the school was open. And our teaching assistants all speak multiple local languages. Mm-hmm. And so they now manage the breakout rooms. And so we'll be able to move one of our students with the parent with a particular native language into a breakout room with the teaching assistant, and have the teaching assistant be able to talk to the parent in the local language to give them the instructions that their child needs to do. And that is our teaching assistants said that they have never felt as valuable as they have this year. That before they were sort of the extra person in the room, and now they hold a critical role here at school because of the changes that we've had to implement.
Yeah, and I suppose that's something then that's going to continue going forward as well, isn't it? So no matter what the program is going to be, as things change and maybe a vaccine comes in and you move back to maybe more traditional setup, you know, having your teaching assistants and other members of staff feel that way is amazing, because that just, it means, you know, they're going to feel much more part of the school moving forward, and their role is maybe going to adapt and change as you move forward as well.
Yes, and they, like some of our staff, their technology skills were pretty low when all of this started. And so I think if anybody would have said to them 6 months ago, you're going to be managing a Zoom room with multiple kids and families in multiple languages with dual screens and running curriculum, they would have just looked at us and laughed and said, you've got me mixed up with somebody else. Like, you know, I can barely turn the computer on. And yet they made leaps and bounds of change, because they had to, the school needed it, and they stepped right up to do that.
And if we think about then the learning loss that maybe took place between the end of the last academic year and then over the summer months and into this academic year, I think assessment data that you've been using, that's a really important part of what you've been doing in terms of benchmarking and measuring where your students are. So as it came to the beginning of the academic year, you use NWA MAP assessments, I believe, don't you? Yeah. So did you run those MAP tests again at the beginning of the academic year to kind of get a benchmark and understanding of where your students were? Did you realize from that data then that perhaps that the gaps were bigger than you expected, or what did that data tell you?
So we actually did not get MAP testing done. We're actually scheduled to do it. This is the third time we have rescheduled it. So we're supposed to start it next week. Instead, we chose to try to do it in class. We didn't want to do the MAP testing virtually, and it's just been a challenge. But instead, what we did was another piece of Edmentum was the exact path, and that does assessment. And those that use the MAP testing, you come back and you get this report that says, here are all the gaps where the student needs help in, and then the teacher has to individually go and make lessons and do this. But with the exact path, which we started using, which, as I said, is part of Edmentum, we had all the students test on that, and it picked up these gaps, and we absolutely saw lots of gaps that had formed over the course of being of this instruction issues over the months. But the exact path gave each student their individualized pathway and lessons forward. So the teachers think that this is fantastic because they are not the ones now trying to come up with individualized lessons to meet all these gaps. The program did that for them.
Great, and that's something that's coinciding and running alongside your digital curriculum. So that's like an add-on sitting outside of that. So for anyone who hasn't heard of Exact Paths, like as MaryAnn said, it's building out individualized learning paths of content for each student based on their individual needs and where those learning gaps are. So lots of schools have been using that to identify the needs of each student. But the next step is actually providing them with personalized pieces of content without the teacher having to go and look at multiple resources and pull things together and try and align it to each student. It's all done automatically, which is great. So I know I'm just conscious of time as we go through the conversation, but if we think about now, we're coming up to the midterm break is going to be happening in a couple of weeks. You're going to be, everyone across the schools be going to get a well-earned break. I think you were saying you're closed for 4 to 6 weeks. What does the rest of the academic year look like for you? Is it going to continue with this type of hybrid blended learning model for the rest of the year? Because, you can't really go back to traditional schooling right now. I'd imagine that without any vaccine, it's the same for all schools around the world. It's working with the model that is fits for you. And then that will continue now till what, May, June?
Yeah, so we will continue with this for the whole school year. We had made the decision back when we started this that we were setting our textbooks, all of our traditional textbooks curriculum aside, and this is what we were using for the entire year. We do have a 6-week break over Christmas, so winter break. We made a decision early on to eliminate our fall break and our spring break and instead make a really long winter break so that those that had not been able to get out of the country when COVID hit were able to hopefully get home at some point. One of the things that our students will be doing over the break is they'll be using the Exact Path program. So the students will have things to work on during those 6 weeks. And another piece is we do have some students, I was saying that I was just working with a family this morning that is joining us. She's going to be a senior. There was some shuffling because she lost some time recently because of trying to get into a new country and COVID restrictions and such. And so she'll be using the the Edmentum programs to do some credit recovery. So we have students that are doing some credit recovery over the spring, over the winter break. The other students will be using Exact Path, and then we'll pick right back up on February 1st, where we left off.
Great. No, and I want to also make clear to everyone, people who may think that this was a completely seamless partnership from beginning to end. We had our own challenges within Edmentum as well. And I think the week before you were due to go live, we had, I think we had nearly 20 times more people enroll into our program than it ever before. So our system was at full capacity, and overnight we had to make this switch onto a brand new server, change our hosting platform. So we thank you as well for your patience on our side, for working with us through our challenges and making sure that we could get everything up and running for you. I think as many schools experienced, tech companies also experienced challenges in terms of doing things that maybe they'd never done before, and changing and adapting our platforms to make sure it works for everybody. So we really appreciate the partnership that we've had with you. Hope it lasts a long time to come, and I'm sure it's going to change and adapt as we have this year. It will change and adapt as we move forward into the future. So I really appreciate the time that you've taken to talk with me today. I do want to open this up for questions for anybody who's maybe have some questions about MaryAnn's experience over the last couple of months, maybe covering some areas that I haven't asked about. We've got about 5 minutes. So for anyone who maybe, if you want to take yourself off mute, there's not a huge group of us, so happy for you to take yourself off mute and ask either MaryAnn or myself any questions about the program or about MaryAnn's experience with the program over the last couple of months. For anybody who would like to find out more, you can just visit the Edmentum showcase. Or you can contact me directly. My contact details are up on screen. But please, if anyone has any questions, please take the time to ask now.
And I see Peter just joined us.
Yeah, hi Peter. Probably checking to make sure we stay on time, on schedule.
No, I wanted to come and see how this success story was panning out.
Yeah, we were just talking about it, Peter. It's really been fantastic, the relationship that we've built up with MaryAnn and the support that we've managed to put in place. And we talked about at the beginning of this, actually it stemmed from a conversation myself and you had, talking about the challenges that AISN schools were experiencing and the need for digital curriculum, but also professional development to run alongside that. And that sparked the conversation then with MaryAnn and actually helped us to build out this program that so far has been a great success.
Yeah, and you know, we know that it's been a difficult time, and MaryAnn, I don't know whether you said it, and I don't know whether I'm allowed to say it, but in a way, this saved your school, I think.
Absolutely. I said from the beginning, if we did not have this program, I don't know what we would have done, because there was no way we could continue to deliver education the way we were doing it. And one of my thoughts at the time was, we're a pretty small school, and I was like, what if we just close for a year and let people figure it out themselves, and we'll reopen back in a year from now? And that was something that I had proposed to the board. I mean, we really were at the point of, I don't know what to do. And so this really did save us, and it's moved us so far ahead of all of the schools in town here. But just, our parents say, oh, if we were back in the United States, our kids would be online. They wouldn't be getting this. If they can't believe that they're in this little country in Mauritania getting a better program than they would be getting in Western countries.
Yeah, isn't that the thing? I've just come out of a session where we were talking about what innovations have we experienced that we want to keep, and surely this has to be one of them. That this idea that we can continue and have some sort of continuity plan for education, particularly in our part of the world where, you know, whenever there's an election or anything sort of crops up, it ends up being hugely impactful and not always in a great way. So to have this as a mechanism for backing up learning and the, you know, continuity in schools, I think is a great thing. And Derek, I should also thank you for your kind sponsorship of this event while I'm here. And we do really appreciate that as well.
No, thank you very much, Peter. It's been great. I mean, we're long-time sponsors of AISN. We love working with the group and working with the schools, and it's brought the partnership that we have with MaryAnn, so we're really, really grateful. So again, I suppose we're coming to the end, and I know I want to keep everything running on time. We're down to the last couple of seconds. So again, MaryAnn, I just want to thank you for coming on board and helping us to go through the model and the different challenges and that you've had over the last couple of months, and talk about the partnership that we've built out and the plans for our future partnership as well. Thank you for Peter for joining us.